Hello and welcome to the ORCA pod, continuing our coverage of Sydney Survivor, the fourth best LRG existing to date, as voted by you, the fans and community in Australia, celebrating these LRGs. We're in the fourth best. We'll be covering the top three at some point in the distant future. I don't know when, because very soon, very shortly, we will start our coverage of the next season of Canberra Survivor 3, Canberra versus the world. How topical, given the announcement today of the contestants, or some of the contestants on Australia versus the world. But we'll be getting into that next week. We'll also have our interview with production with Eli, and of course, award all of the important awards that you have been busily voting for. We've had a lot of votes for this season and some really interesting votes coming through, and they're all very close. So keep those votes coming. Let's see who is the MVP, the best pre-merge boot, etc. And of course, will Ethan win the medal named after him that he won the first time, again, back to back? Whether he wins it or not, it's a funny story, so I'm looking forward to covering that. But tonight, before we get into that next week, I am so excited to have a very special guest to talk to from this season. She won the first season of Australian Survivor. I think we call it the first season. Some purists call it the third season. But she won the first season of Australian Survivor. And then for some reason, years later, decided I'm going to play a completely unknown LRG and have that experience again. Looking forward to chatting with her about all of it. So without further ado, let me welcome the winner of the first season of Australian Survivor and star of Sydney Survivor, Kristie fucking Bennett. Welcome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, what an intro. And yes, we do call it season 1.
Were you outraged that there were even questions about the Celebrity Survivor during the quiz on Sydney Survivor? You were sitting in the jury for that when they asked who hosted effectively season 2.
Oh, I was like, no, I understand, but also I'm like, no, it's like that is AD, and now we're in. Is that how it goes?
That's
so
BC.
We're in AD, and that was in BC, so that's how we live it.
Did you watch those seasons back in the day?
I did, actually. I watched them back in the day. I don't really recall them much, because I just remember being like, this is not the Survivor format. Like, sorry, guys. Like, I do have huge respect for them, and I don't cast them out of the community. But when it came back for my season, they bought the format, and it was a replica of it. The tropical island, the same sort of challenges, the dynamics, and that kind of wasn't there the first few times.
Well, that first season was in Barron, South Australia, and it was borderline unwatchable. I think it got taken off the air before it finished airing. So, but I think I did watch it in the real time for a while. And then the celebrity one was on a tropical island, but it was, of course, celebrities. It was a stretch of the term. There was. I remember the Home and Away woman one, I think, and there was the dickhead senator from One Nation on there. But
you've got a good memory.
this is what we had in Australia for Survivor, as you know, until they cast it again. On you come, and I've said it before on this program. I'll gush the praise upon you again. You saved the franchise. I don't believe we are at season 8 or 9 or whatever we are. If you hadn't have gone on and actually played one of the most incredible games, and then gave the most incredible final tribal council, which then just rocketed the way people played it from then on. Season 2 was 10 years of Survivor evolution on the US one, because they all looked at what you did and they're like, that's how I want to play it. I don't want to play boring, stick to numbers, what have you. And that made the show more appealing. And then it gets better ratings, and then the show has continued on after success with a couple of lulls here, but it's survived long enough that it can handle a bad season, and that's all because of you and your final tribal council.
That is the biggest honor, because every player gets out there and wants to make their mark, and I didn't get to play the game that I wanted to play, but I played to win, because that's all I cared about, and to have such an amazing impact on it, not only with that last challenge and that final tribal council, but had been rehearsing since I was a little kid. It is an absolute freaking honor, like every time I hear it.
I remember I do remember, I've never watched your season once, and that was in the real time, but I do remember, like, I wasn't like, I didn't really have an opinion on you. Or sort of like this sort of quirky girl in the edit that wasn't shown to being strategic. So I'm like, oh, I guess she's sort of quirky. And then I remember in the real time tuning in for the finale and going, Lee's just going to win this. It's going to be so boring. Like, I'm telling my wife that, who like is not a Survivor fan, but probably knows more than any other Survivor fan. Like, probably knows more than any non-Survivor fan ever, just because she has to listen to me and be around it.
You all the time.
yeah. So she knows all these survivors that people wouldn't even know. But so she was watching it. I said, "Oh, this, Lee's gonna win. It's gonna be so boring." When you won that challenge, I was blown away. Like, I'm like, that was pretty badass. Like really, it was. And then the final Tribal Council. And I just remember the bit that would have sold me if I was there was when you said you hadn't been like you hadn't been trying to win the challenges, but you did somewhat wanted to test yourself in endurance against Lee and Elle. So sometimes on those ones, you would give yourself a bit, like, try harder, and then you'd make sure you'd always go out like third, because no one really remembers or third to last, no one really remembers who gets the bronze. So you knew you could beat them in endurance, and you weren't afraid of it. And then obviously you backed it up by actually winning the challenge. And that level of strategy, the sort of foxing the challenge to work out what you could win on, was, to me, like, on everything else, you had a lot of other things going on, but that was like, for me, like, she was just playing every aspect of this game perfectly. So that's when I was like, this woman's amazing, and I really hope you win. And you could tell you were sort of going to win as because Lee sat there with this sort of like shocked look. Poor Lee with this shocked look, and it's like, what's happening?
Oh my gosh! Like, the day of, he was like, "Oh, they're going to have some really hard questions for us," and he's like, "So what do you reckon they're going to ask?" And I just was like, "What?" Like, I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I have no idea." And he's like, "Have you thought about what you're going to say?" I was like, "Not really." I'm like, I had been thinking about it at every single vote. After every Tribal Council, I was like, I'm going to say that at the end. I'm going to say this at the end. I was taking note of who came what in what challenges, where I was in comparison to where they were. And it's all things that people can't visually see and detect that you're taking notice of. And the Survivor community that I'm in now, they are very good at doing this. And I had no idea that they were so good at doing it. But when you're out there, it's a lot harder because you're managing everything else. But that's what I love about Survivor. I love those, I love a big move, but it's in the detail in which you play your game. It's how you ask questions. It's where you come place. Like, if in the first challenge at Merge, I was in the top 4 of the challenge, and everybody else had dropped out because they were doing alliances stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I have to find a reason to drop out of this, because if I'm up there with everyone else who's at the bottom, they're going to come straight for me. So I actually tended to change arms. And even production afterwards was like, what the hell, Kristie?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't tell production because, they're a little loose lipped sometimes.
Yeah, well, production are always trying to get the best, story. So I would imagine if they know that what they're doing, then they might ask probing questions to the other contestants. It's like, what do you think Kristie's doing? Like, what do you think her game is? Like, these sorts of questions that they're probably not bothering asking them, so no one's thinking about you. Because if you're savvy and production are asking those sorts of questions, there's something going on that you're not really thinking about properly, I would suggest.
Oh, definitely. There's a whole nother game. Production's a part of the game just as much as all the players. And if you're not thinking about what they're asking you, then you're missing out on a lot of information.
So you had this incredible.
Hello there.
What are you doing? Come say hello and we'll say goodbye.
Say hi. Can they hear me? Hi. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
This is Kristie. She won Survivor once, like a real Survivor. Pretty amazing. I'll show you her season one day.
Okay.
All right. Great. Okay.
But my iPad won't flash.
Yeah, we can plug it in. I am live. Go on.
Then
All right. So
That's a really good excuse. It died.
I think it did. It was on 10%. Okay, so what a legendary story. We've covered that, and sadly, we've never seen you again on the real Survivor. Was it that itch that you just didn't get another chance to scratch that made you go, I'm going to sign up for one of these? Well, tell me first, where had you even heard that these things existed?
I had no idea that any of this sort of thing existed at all. If I had known before my season, I would have been playing every single one of them. It would have bloody helped a lot because I wouldn't have had a mental breakdown in the first 3 days if I had understood how difficult it is to go from watching it to actually implementing it.
Mhm.
It's like a whole nother thing, and you see it all the time in LRGs. People just get so excited and go too hard, or they don't say enough, and so I'm well impressed with all of them. But essentially, I had a really love-hate relationship with Survivor because it was really tough on me, and I also wasn't really liked out there amongst the players. And then I came out, and heaps of people really liked me, so that was great. But I was kind of figuring out what does Survivor mean to me these days, now that I'm not just a fan. And I also got a lot of criticism of my game. As much as I get a lot of love, I get a lot of criticism too. And I thought, I am a really good game player. People only saw this game because that's the game that I had to play. And it was a 55-day game. I was ready to play a 39-day game my whole life. And then I get the call, I'm on, it's 55 days. It's double the length. Like on my season, I literally made it to the end twice.
Did you, when you heard that, were you like, oh my God, this is going to be brutal? Like it is such a long time.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically.
Insane. I was like, they're delusional. What the hell? And even afterwards, I think they're absolutely insane for doing that, because by day 45, you literally feel like you've been hit by a bus and you can't function, you can't play properly. Anyway,
They have to produce a certain amount of episodes for television coverage. It's Australian media rules.
They're all throwing that out the window. You wait.
Well, yes,
you'll see very soon that they don't care when they want to not care.
This Australia versus the world thing is known to be a 14-day season or something. These are the rumors. Anyway, so yes,
I don't know exactly, but so I got involved because I started doing casting coaching for people, and I wanted to find out how can I train these people to get the actual experience, because I can tell you everything you need to know, but you need to go out there and implement it. So I heard of the backyard one, and so I found that online, and then I was like, maybe there's a Sydney one. And I kind of
you weren't willing to travel to Perth too far.
A little bit too far, a little bit too much of an investment for something that I was going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Like everyone was going to be like, holy shit, she's paid all this money to come here. Like, and I actually wasn't looking for myself. I was looking for others so they could have their turn at playing. Because also some of my men, the people who approach me, they're probably not going to get on, but I want to help them still get that experience.
Yeah.
And then
it was a business trip. It was a business trip. It was networking. Is that part of it?
No. So in the end, I said no. I put in an application because I couldn't find the contact details of whoever was running it, and decided. And then Eli wanted me to play. I said no. I said no so many times, and then so 7 days before.
You didn't write to apply. You wrote to meet some of these people for the purposes of what you're trying to do with the coaching. Eli had encouraged you to play.
Yeah, so Eli encouraged me to play and was like, wouldn't it be cool for you to play? And I'm like, no, I'm not playing. I want to know more about it and see what it's like so I can put people there. And then as time went on, I was like, if there's an alternate, like if somebody drops out, and obviously, like, I don't know if anyone dropped out, but a week before he kept
I don't want to
happening.
cast shade on Eli, but if I was running the season, and you agreed to be my alternate, someone would absolutely be dropping out. Like, I'm on board with your conspiracy theory here, because I think that's exactly what I would have done in his shoes. Because he's making a brand new LRG. There's a bunch of them around the country already. He can get an actual Survivor on his. It's just going to like blow it up. Like, how amazing is this from a juicer point of view, from a creative point of view? It was gold. He had to get you if he could.
Oh, totally. Like if I was in his position, I would have done exactly the same. Like that's how I would have approached it for sure. But at the time, I was just like, oh, just I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even really thought about doing one of the other ones either. I hadn't even seen one. I went in with no expectations whatsoever. Like in hindsight, I was absolutely delusional to drive myself out as a known person to the middle of the Blue Mountains with a bunch of super fans who could potentially be crazies. They're not crazies though, but there's that risk. I have faced some crazies who have done some crazy things to me. And then was just like, I'm just going to do this thing. I don't even know what the challenge is like. I don't even know how, like anything. I had zero expectations, which is bizarre. I always go in with a plan or an expectation, and there was none of that.
Yeah, I've never thought about the crazy element. Like that is a part of a challenge for the LRGs. I have done the casting on one of the LRGs, the one that Danny and Jules played on that's not aired yet, Melbourne 4. And look, I was always very mindful that particularly for women, it's quite a challenge to go out to the middle of nowhere with people you've never met. Like, it's not what you train yourself to do. It's not putting yourself in a safe environment. And I never thought about the additional factor of you that you probably had to deal with a few weirdos in your time, harassing you on social media about this or that or whatever, just by being in the public eye. So it's an extra element probably for you of concern potentially.
Yeah. And with the female thing, like I have traveled the world completely by myself, and I'm pretty outgoing and unusual in that way as a girl. Like it's not weird for me to just do something unusual. But I definitely see that in the community now, and I definitely understand it a lot more. And it kind of makes me sad that there's less females applying for this type of thing because of that reason. I think we definitely could do some things to set it up so girls better understand what they're getting into, because they just don't know what they're getting into.
Yes.
If they knew and understood, it would be much better. But ironically,
did you do that van thing? Just to do the show, did you do the van thing? You did do that?
Yeah, I did. I did do the van thing for about 9 months.
Yeah.
I didn't go all the way around Australia. I only made it to Cairns, but I did do it for 9 months. So
you just drove to Cairns, hung out in Cairns for 9 months, and then drove back? Is that what it's?
No, it took me 9 months to get to Cairns.
Yeah.
And then I lived and worked in Cairns for like 3 months. Yeah.
From Sydney. So
yeah.
Okay. Look, I'm from South Australia, but I admit you still did the good bit. So I think I understand why you did that.
Yeah. No, I got stuck there because I didn't have 4-wheel drive, and I was like, and I had met my past boyfriend doing that, who I ended up staying with for like 6 years or something. But we met on that trip. So by the time we kind of got there, I was pretty happy, and I was like, you know what? I will sell the van and buy a 4-wheel drive and do the rest of it. And I still haven't done that. So I'm vicariously living through Mel Sheen.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, I've seen her van. I love her van. It's the best.
She's got a great van. I've seen her as well in it. I saw her at Tara. This is really off topic now. This is the community. I met her for the first time at Tara's birthday. Tara from Melbourne 2, who had a drunk driver for her birthday. And then Mel also came to my 40th because she just happened to be
so fun
in Adelaide at that time. So, I'm like, you're in Adelaide, you come to my 40th. It'd be great. So
I love that. That's the crazy, like the good crazy. Like I know all these people. Like when you said Tara, I was like, yeah, I know these people. I've never met any of them, but it's insane how much you get to know the names, the personalities, without crossing paths with them, and then you bump into them one day, or it's not weird for you, there's somebody to just invite them along and you'd be
Yeah.
completely fine with it.
It's one of the great things about the community. So you get on the season now. There was a bit of a bombshell dropped in the tea party last week that I don't think was picked up on much. That Michelle said that either she knew you were playing or you knew she was playing, that you knew Michelle somehow. Bit of controversy here that there was a pre-existing relationship, and you both knew each other were playing. Is this correct? Is this what am I stating this correctly?
Yeah, we did know each other were playing. I did not know Michelle was as famous as she is. I always tell Michelle that she's more famous than me. People will do so much more for her than they would for me any day. And it's true. I see it in the community all the time. But she had sent me a couple messages, just really nice things like, hey, really liked how you played, or this person said something really nice about you in the community. But I didn't really click who she was, other than she was like running this Facebook group. Because again, I went on to Survivor and was kind of like not aware of like the internet side of things at all.
Okay.
So I just spoke about it with my friends, and I feel so silly now for not having known. But I accidentally sent her a message saying, hey, I'm going to this thing, going to this Sydney Survivor game thing on the weekend. Like, have you ever heard of these games before?
And did she say, oh, yes, I'm playing in it too?
Oh, I'm not supposed to say anything, but I'll see you there.
Yeah. It's like, oh, NDA, should have done that. Oops. And then
I was like, don't worry, it's all good. Like, I don't care.
But you're like, whatever, I'm this is very random that I'm then doing this. So you knew her, and then you end up on the same tribe with her, which is a good start. I want to talk about the move that you made. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about your actual game. The move that you made when you
It's not charged.
No, that's my wife looking for the cat. The move that you made when you arrived, you get there, about half, maybe 3/4 of the cast already there, and you obviously get a big reaction. They all know who you are. Matty P's famous shocked Pikachu there. And you immediately go and hug everybody. Now, we talked about this on our coverage. Was that a deliberate choice to humanize yourself?
I was highly, highly conscious of exactly what I had to do when I arrived if I wanted to have any chance of actually getting to play the game. So, hell yeah. I knew exactly what I was doing. I had to break that wall with the person, with every single person, so they felt as though they could come up and talk to me. And I learnt that from being this known person where a bunch of people know me, but I don't know anything about them. And so breaking that wall so they felt like they could approach me was the first thing that I had to do.
And it was very effective. You saw it immediately break down the barriers with the people. And we joked about it because we're like, it really worked for you, but don't do it.
Oh yeah.
If you're just anyone else. Don't look at them to hug everybody. It's weird, but it worked for you because it's like you're known, and it did, I think, really humanize you right away. Now I called, I famously called Sam would win, but I also famously called that you would make
you did a great job
far in the game, and you would have gone further if not for the silly twist, I believe. But
Agreed.
I was like, there's no way they're voting Kristie out. Like, if I was there, I wouldn't vote her out. I want to hear her stories. I want to hear about what it was like to be on Survivor. Like, worst case, I just get to meet her today and I get to hear all these cool stories. Best case, like happened to a bunch of these people, she becomes my bestie. So, like, there's no way I'm voting you out, right? Did you think that would be a factor, or did you think that?
I love how you're still plotting this. You're like, yes, I'm going to do this podcast, and we're going to become besties, and then she's going to come to my 41st birthday party when she's in Adelaide.
Catch up with Nick, catch up with Matt, and then come to my party.
It's true. I've totally forgotten what you were saying. Now my brain's just stopped. What was it? What were we talking about until I started talking about Adelaide? Damn
No, I
it.
blanked as well. I said that you.
Being friends, wanting to keep me because you want to hear
Yeah,
the
that's what
stories
I
and
thought.
stuff.
Did you think that,
Yeah.
or did you think that people would go, no, she's had her turn, she can go? Like, that's the other thought process.
Yeah, I thought that there would be a couple of people in there who were like, she's had her turn, she can go, or like, we won't vote her out first, but maybe second. Like, I didn't think people were gonna actively want to keep me around for as long as they intended. Like, almost everyone in my lives is like, yeah, you were fifth, sixth, whatever, and we're gonna vote you out at six. I was like, you're gonna vote me out at six? I would have thought you were gonna vote me out right before merge. Like, so they were still keeping me around longer than I thought, but I knew that my game would be able to bring me further. Than I needed to be. But the reactions were bizarre. Like, each turn, like Joseph saying he wants to take me to the end, and I'm like, this guy's full of it. Like, he's totally lying. But he stands by that, like, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you have the opposite reaction of some people just being like, she's gotta go, like Leah.
We were talking about Joseph last week on the Tea Party. Joseph said, absolutely. That's what Schneider is saying here. He would keep Kristie until the final and then try to earn the win against her. That is what Joseph says. And Joseph says that he would have run the, like, you know, she's already won. Why would you give it to her? Like, she's just a celebrity who's getting like a celebrity ride. Look, maybe I don't mind the arguments, to be honest, but you know, you're known for being an incredible final tribal council performer, so it seems like a silly bet.
It was interesting because this, whatever celebrity status I had, went out the door like after the first vote. Like, nobody was thinking about that after that. Like, yes, it was like a little bit in their mind of like, yes, she's a real player. Like, but nobody was like, it was just, I became a part of their alliance. Like, and I'm in the alliance. Yes, I'm at the bottom because I have more known threat levels about me and exposed game play as such for them to pull on. But it was interesting that it wasn't so much like she's a player, she's a winner, she's a winner, she's a winner. But definitely the old going up against the best final tribal council speaker of all time, not my title, but I will take it, is I would love to go up against somebody. Like, I reckon that would just be super cool for somebody. And the thing is, I don't think I'd be that good at the end of a short day game because you don't have as much time to think about it. On the show, I thought about it when I was going to sleep, like in between games and stuff. Sydney Survivor, I was literally just like, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do that. I had no idea what I was going to say at the end.
And you're given literally 5 minutes to prepare. It maybe goes for at most 30 minutes. Like, it's very difficult to get out all the information. It's very different to having, I'm sure, days to prepare. And also, you know, the tribal council, I understand, in the real time goes for a couple of hours, if not longer. So there's plenty of time to really talk through your whole 55 days. You say it's funny how you talk about the people that are trying to get you out. The person most focused on getting you out, your nemesis Shane, had no idea who you were. Like, how interesting is that?
Yeah, it was a scam.
Shane, all his advantages, just focus on getting.
Once he heard I'd won, he had no qualms with me. And the weirdest part about it all is that afterwards he let me like sleep at his house and have a shower because I was living in my camper van. And we got along like a house on fire. And he was just like, it's just because everyone else wanted to work with you. And I'm like, that's not a good reason.
Well, you said when you voted for him that you figured he wasn't actually, you thought he'd be playing an idol. And I think you said you're ruining your perfect voting record. Is the fact that you voted correctly every time in Australian Survivor, and then up until that point you had and you know, to the extent that you completely torched TK and Lizzie to make sure you voted correctly on those votes. Was Shane the first time you ever voted incorrectly in a game of Survivor? That's what you said.
I think so, but it was somewhat intentional It was
we said
intentional, but it wasn't part of my rule book for the game. So
your rule book is to always vote correctly. Is that the what you mean?
Yeah, like I tend to like to do that. Like I'm happy to stretch out of it, but it's got to be a good reason for it.
The there was a comment that they want to know your best moment. I will ask that at the end of the show, but I want to talk about some of
I can't see the comments. So,
okay.
Oh my God, that's where the comments are. Sorry, I'm just stupid.
No, it's okay. Mark wants to know your best moment. Mark wants to know your best moment.
From Sydney Survivor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, best. Oh, well, like the most elated moment was when Ethan wins the ring toss thing. Yeah, the quotes. That was I didn't feel that good on actual Survivor after winning a challenge because I was like, it's me. I'm done. They've found the idols. Like there is almost literally nothing I could do. I would have fought for it, but it was just like, yes! Because I just asked Luke to throw the challenge to me, and I realized we're at the sack race. And the decision maker has been left up to Shane, who wants me out. So he's not going to throw it. Like, in hindsight, my blue guys should have put somebody there to just kind of like go easy on it and save my ass and vote out, Shane, Leo, Joseph. They had heaps of wiggle room.
These questions were asked to Danny, to Michelle, to Sam, who we've all had on our coverage, and they all say it's just not in their DNA.
Bullshit, just crap. Oh, yeah, shut up.
To throw a challenge. That's what they say.
It's in Danny's, but I know that they're strategic, and they're very strategic, and they failed in strategy there. I'm saying it. I love my Blues, but you let me down.
They did, but perhaps it provided some additional cover for you. It didn't matter because then you end up getting twist screwed. But an extra cover that they weren't aligned with you. Now, you did such an incredible job in episode 5. It was an absolute masterclass of manipulation for poor Matty P, Ethan, Merlene, and Jazz. This is, of course, the double vote where everyone's coming together. There's basically the second person with the second most amount of votes going to go. You're working as a group. They're talking about who should you 5 as a group vote from the new blue. And they're saying they're throwing up, oh, what about Michelle or Danny? And you're like, oh, they're just a bit nothing. They're just a bit in the background. Like, they're not like really big players. Like, just, nothing women basically is what you're throwing out for them. And everyone's eating that up. And Luke's immune, so you can't do Luke. And then Sam is like the one you just say, oh, look, I don't want to vote for Sam. Like, he's the one you actually like put some weight behind. And then you're like, well, who else is there? It's like, what about Shane? And they're like, yeah, Shane. Shane, who's only ever voted with them. Like, he's only ever voted with them. He's on the original tribe. And everyone knows he's got an idol. And somehow you managed to convince them that this is the smart play. Like, it was a masterclass of manipulation. In the real time, did you realize could you believe what you're getting away with in this circumstance?
No. I was like, what is happening here? Like, I did have to push really hard, though. There was like a lot of pushback, and I was like, and then they're all trying to satisfy me. And I'm like, well, you know what, guys? I've sacrificed 2 of mine already. I've proven that I'm loyal. You need to give me something so that, like, when we come together, I stick with you. Like, you haven't put anything on the plate yet, and I am sacrificing left, right, and center. It's your turn to sacrifice somebody. And look at this. Easy sacrifice. Sorry, Shane's here, but no one cares about Shane. And everyone wants to try and work with Joseph. Everyone wants to try and work with Leah. I'm working with the other ones. And everyone else was just like, sweet. Shane, like, kept us all in a safe, happy position without pissing each other off.
It's hilarious because you sacrificed Lizzie and TK, who you like. Lizzie, you were not aligned with. TK, marginally, like on the peripherals of an alliance. So you didn't really you voted for them, I guess, but like they didn't need your vote, like to vote those people out. How did you?
No, I know they didn't need it,
yes.
But I had already specified to them, I want to work with you, and I'm going to work with you to demonstrate that. like me, this is a demonstration that I am with you and this is how we're going to work together, because I needed to have that. I knew that I had to build up that, I don't know, like resume with them, because you're not going to get to 5 and then all of a sudden then be like, yeah, I trust her. Like, you haven't done anything with us at all. And so when we got to Lizzie, I was like, hey guys, I worked with you last time. Lizzie didn't. Lizzie voted for Merlene. I was with you. Like, I've proven that I can be a part of this plan. And then the next time came around, I was like, I can prove that I can be a part of the plan. I've done it twice. Like, they're not demonstrating this at all. But I was actually aligned with TK, because when we played the egg challenge thing, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I really want to work with you. Like, let's be aligned. But what kind of happened is that we landed on a 5 and I was like, I like TK, I want him in on it. But it never then got tested over at Blue. But sadly, I was like, yes, I'm on try with TK. I'm happy with TK. Lizzie was probably going to be the next person anyway, but I can still work with Lizzie because I'd already told her about the JT vote, but she'd chosen to do otherwise. And she really trusted me because of that. But literally, we were maybe 2 steps away from wherever we were when we changed tribes. And TK, right behind me to Ethan, goes, I'm ready to throw them all under the bus. I'm with you guys. And I'm going, hasn't even been 20 seconds, mate. Get stuffed. Like, now we're screwed. Like, we're in the bottom and you've shown that we're broken.
Yeah. Like, you could have worked some magic if he'd shown you type. Possibly.
Exactly. If he had shown that we were a solid 3, his strategy could have had more legwork. We kind of got unlucky in that they just said that they were a 4 and that he'd been so quick to make us look like we were nothing.
And then you were happy to double down on that, though.
Sorry, TK, I'm totally like slogging him. Like, he actually did a really great job after that with everything, but it was just, he'd already put the nail in.
And you obviously saw it then, but okay, well, that's fine. He'll go, then Lizzie will go, and then I'll be in this position. I'll have worked it up. They can rely on me. I have voted with them. And then it'll be, if we go again, it's going to be the 2 pairs with me in the middle. I will be the queen maker or the king maker. Now, you might not want to play this what if game, because there's not a lot of value in like what if games when you didn't actually, like, if you made this move, it might have hurt people's feelings. So you never had to make it. So why am I going to like say what I would have done? Because you were ultimately in that position. The double vote changed the nature of what was going to happen. But if it's been a normal vote, it would have been you in the middle with Malene and Jazz on one side who thought that they had you. And on the other side would have been Ethan and Matty P who thought that they had you. Now, the confessionals that we see very much say that you're not trusting the boys. Now, that's what we see in the edit. That's what your confessionals were at the time. If you go into a vote, are you sticking with the boys or are you sticking with the women?
It's a funny one, because when I watched it back, I was like, whoa, what was I saying? What was I doing? Like, so my kind of thoughts now might be a little bit skewed from what I actually said there. Not because I've changed my mind, just because my memory's lapsed. I really wanted to work with Merlene, like, and I really wanted to work with Matt. Like, they were like my goes, and I was like, they're kind of on the opposite thing. Like, this isn't really working. Like, what the hell? And so I'm not sure of which way I actually would have gone, because it really depended on who convinced me more and made me feel better about it, and like it was actually going to go ahead, and that we had a plan forward past that, because I wasn't selling for just like one move. I wanted the 3 play down the line distance. Ultimately, the dream would have been Merlene, that she gets what she wants. Jazz, Merlene, and I vote for Ethan. Ethan goes. I don't know. I'm not thinking about advantages or anything. Ethan goes, And then in my dreams, it's then Jazz goes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you would try to break the pairs and engineer your own grouping because you felt close with it. I love it. I love the boldness. It's like, yeah, it's not just this move and that move. It's these are the people I feel good about, and that's who I wanted. And I'd rather they lose their pairs anyway because then they're just with me because they don't have their bestie anymore. That's a very diplomatic answer because I know that Pop's behind you. I know that Matty P paid big dollars to have Todd, winner of Survivor
Shout out
China.
Matty P. Look how cute I am. Oh,
Like
wait.
a custom Kristie Pop.
There we go. Yeah. Check it out. It's so cool. It's so good. Sorry, you can't really see.
We can see it. So it's very hard for you to say that you would have turned on them. So
I drag on Ethan all the time. He knows I absolutely love him, but he drove me up the freaking wall in that game, and I'm just like, bro, we can't just win another challenge because you're gonna be fine and I'm gonna go. And so he knows, like, it's totally fine.
Now we get to the merge. You made the merge. You must have been like, what the fuck? I've made the merge. This is amazing. And then Eli reveals, and I've said this on the program, I'm a fan of this twist. I was a fan of South Africa. I get why they did it here. I think you were reacting in the real time. I think you were familiar with the twist. Oh, no, you weren't.
No, I had no idea what the twist was. Yeah. I hadn't watched South Africa. I was like, there's one in South Africa? My super fandom is really just getting worse by the day, like in comparison to things. And then I was like, so what does this really mean? And so I didn't understand if we had to vote for each other. And in that moment, I was like, so this is what it's like for a person who's never watched Survivor to try and play. Like you just don't know what the expected format is. Like there's no pre-authorized approach to it.
And did you feel once you were paired up with Danny, and I guess, you paired up with Danny. I
thought this was bloody great.
You think it's good? Yeah, having
that
Danny's
protected, I'm protected. Fantastic. And Danny was devastated.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, this is perfect because my 5 blues are not going to sacrifice 2 of us when they can sacrifice 1. Because there's no way I would be sacrificing 2 of my alliance when I could sacrifice 1. So I thought, this is just ideal. Matty P and Ethan are together. So, like, that's not super ideal. But if they both stay, great. If they both go, that's just how it is. It just, for me, I thought every pairing was perfect.
It was perfect from a viewing point of view. As a viewer, it was unbelievable that all these people got paired with their besties. It was absolutely a similar thing actually happened in South Africa, where most of the pairs were people that were connected or aligned.
God, it would have been. I don't know how you would have managed it if you weren't aligned with that person because you're kind of like trying to save yourself, but then you know that other people are trying. It's like hard enough to save yourself, let alone like you and another person.
Yeah.
Oh, the baggage.
At least your experience wasn't as bad as the South African one. There was I don't know if you've now been told the South African one.
I'm happy with spoilers. I love spoilers.
Well, they not only was it everything that you went through, but there was also a reward challenge, and the winner of the reward went with their partner, but they also chose someone who then also went with that partner. So it was the 4 of them that went, and that left 6 behind at the camp, and it was like immunity and reward. So they won immunity, they've got the reward, and they take their besties on this reward, which was basically to go to this water slide park, and this woman there is having the worst time at a water slide park you've ever seen anybody having because she knows she's fucked. She's like, you shouldn't have taken me. Like, why have you taken me? You needed to take one of them so I could be there trying to work up an outcome there. They're all going to vote for me. Like, I'm done. And the guy's like, oh, man, I thought we'd have a nice time at the water slide park.
Oh, no, the worst. And that's... okay, so Australian Survivor, there was a thing kind of like that, but you were at the bottom. So the 4 who came last went away somewhere else, like Exile Island or something. We didn't know that at the time. And I just thought, I cannot be in that 4 back there because I'm just too easy for them to just shoot and be like, she's out. But oh, I would have been so mad if that happened to me. Like, so mad.
Well, how mad were you when, okay, great, Luke and Sam, they're immune. That's part of the game. Now there's only 4 of us. Ethan plays the idol nullifier, but then Ethan plays an actual idol, and then Shane pops up with the legacy advantage, which on this show we've been very critical of the fact that the legacy advantage was playable at this particular vote because it was always going to be played at this vote. It's insane to have it.
Yeah,
playable.
was it? Okay, question. Is it normally played at that number of people? Because I thought it was at 7 people.
I think I've seen.
I couldn't remember. But I was like, this doesn't feel like the time where they would put a legacy advantage in, which is hell confused me when they were like, and the legacy advantage is being played. I'm like, can you do that now? Isn't that in a few tribals?
Does Shane know what's actually going on here? No, but Shane did know what was going on, and then now you must have felt, oh, now we're fucked. Like, or did you think that no, they'll vote for Michelle and Jazz? I'm good.
No, it was all happening live. Like, I orchestrated that entire vote. Like, I don't know the exact like cut downs and stuff, but I was like, I'm gonna get everyone to vote for Shane and everyone to vote for Matt and Ethan. And
did you know about Matt and Ethan's immunity?
I knew that it was a high likelihood. I didn't know about Matt's, but I knew about Ethan's. And so we're sitting there at Tribal and I'm calculating it. And Ethan's like, I don't know if I should play it. Should I play it? Should I not play it? And I'm like, dude, you just need to tell me what you're going to do. Like, Argh. And then Daddy turns to me and goes, shut up, Kristie. Stop talking to them. Literally, as I was about to be like, oh my God, we have to change our vote to Jazz. Because I'd figured out that no matter what, there's going to be an idol there and my rebound backup is going to go there. And I know that I'm going to be that other vote. Oh no, I don't know what I thought. There was just too much going on. And I was like, shit, there's a rebound. We have to vote for Jazz. But Danny had just told me to shut up. And for some reason I listened to her.
Is that a usual thing you do? Listen when someone tells you to shut up? Is that your usual
No, no, it's not. It's definitely not. It was me trying to appease my previous alliance to show that I was still with them, but it was dumb. It was just, if there was a little bit more time at that tribal, it would have come out. But because you know those tribals when you're in a LRG, there's no like buffer room. Like they're not giving you a minute, and the host isn't like having a minute to think. You're not sitting there waiting, and so it's all said and done within under 5 minutes. On the show, there's a bit of like, oh, I'm sitting around, this person's answering, and they're answering for a really long time. And yes, it is high intensity, but not like, okay, what's your question? What's your question? There's your answer.
Yeah. And then you were obviously, you were in a bit of a bad situation there as well because you were sort of aligned with everyone at that point, other than Shane and Joseph, who you were trying to get rid of.
Yeah,
you were aligned with everyone, and I think they all sort of realized that as well. And they're like, "Well, who's Kristie really working with here?"
but they all needed me.
Yeah, well, you were the amazing shield for them all.
Yeah, that was the thing. I looked at them all, and I was like, "I'm working with all of them except for them, except for Shane. Like, if I can get Shane, then sweet." And so it was like, okay, the rebound's going to be this. I'm going to sacrifice there. And ultimately, I just had a little blind spot where I knew better and should have voted out the person who came in straight away. And I didn't want to lose Michelle, and I didn't want to put Michelle's name out there for no reason, even though it would have been for Jazz.
Was that because of the pre-game connection with Michelle, do you think, a little bit?
No, it was just she was in the 5, and I was like, I don't want to stuff up the 5. And I was happy to stuff up the 5 for 1. R.I.P. Michelle.
Well,
But
it
I would
was
have
you
been
or
going for
her in the
Jazz.
end.
It would have been Jazz.
It was an unlucky bet. That's exactly where you should have gone. But it was it was a confluence of events that you could never predict. And I do think sometimes the legacy advantage is playable at the merge, but it shouldn't be in a circumstance where there's only going to be 5 people you can vote for.
Yeah.
Like one of them's going to one group will definitely be immune. So obviously, there's no point in having the legacy advantage being able to be played at final 7 because anyone who holds it is going to play it at that tribal council.
Yeah.
Even if you were immune, you'd probably play it and play it on someone else and actually save another pair.
Yeah, exactly. You'd increase the odds
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it is pretty crazy. It's really there's only 5 people, and then in hindsight, we've thought about it so much and how to break it down. And should an idol be for just the person who you played on behalf of, or I'm pretty sure Danny's explained it a lot. If Matt plays an idol for himself, but all the votes go on Ethan, then they go home anyway because that's not where the votes were. Which
it's not what the twist is.
Interesting, but I don't know what the twist is. I'm just looking at it from newbie Survivor player here.
It's a bit of a ridiculous twist, but what it is it's good TV, and we're still talking about it. It's one of the most interesting moments in the season. There's other great moments, but that one, you're still talking about it. The group chat's still talking about it. It may be a pretty shitty game twist for the players, but for the viewers, I think there's a lot of entertainment. And I think from a one-day game perspective, booting 2 people there has a lot of value in terms of getting through your schedule. So I understand exactly why they did it, and I enjoyed it from a TV point of view. I was sad to see you go. I was very sad to see Danny go. In the one in South Africa actually resulted in saving my boy Chappies. I don't know if you know Chappies.
I do know Chappies.
But Chappies is the only survivor person, real survivor person I've been able to cultivate a relationship with over Twitter. And he said those lovely things about me on Twitter. He actually made me a video when I was going to appear on Playing with Fire. He made me a video about you got to back Chris in in Playing with Fire. I'll show it to you later. It's
that's sick. I so want to see that. I love that. That makes me so happy.
So he survived because of that twist. He will probably goes at that vote without that twist. So
well, that's the thing. To me, I think Danny saved me. Even the whole thing happened, and at the end of the day, I only had 2 votes out of what how many? 10. That's nothing. But in my eyes, if we had voted for Michelle, I say Michelle because Jazz.
Yeah.
Danny would have saved me because it would have been the 2 of us. It's definitely interesting. It put a huge test on strategic thinking. My brain was like, what the hell? So the level of strategy had to go up because it wasn't my vote and Danny's vote is the same. It was, but it meant the same. I still can't get my head around it. I need a strategy lesson, please. A numbers lesson.
You then, after that, obviously go to the jury. It's your first experience on the jury. How was that experience for you for the first time?
Oh, it was really enlightening. I was so tired that although I was pissed that I was out, I was kind of here's another cool layer of what I get to experience about Survivor that I haven't had before. And I can get some perspective of what it's like for an actual juror. And it really highlighted to me where a part of my game failed a lot. And I didn't care about it at the time. I knew it was important, but to me, it was more important to get to the end and win. But you have to, when you're still in the game, you have to explain to the jury what the hell is going on, because we don't know unless you say it at tribal. So being all cryptic and lovey-dovey doesn't help your case. It doesn't help anyone on the jury. It doesn't make sense. And then everyone's just what the hell? What's going on? So when someone asks you, what happened at the challenge? Bloody well tell us. Be like, the donut fell off and we were all thinking, is Michelle still in it or not? Because we weren't there to see that the donut fell off. You don't need to throw her under the bus, but saying, this is what happened, that's what happened, is really critical and really wanted by the jury, which was something that I never fully comprehended or appreciated before. And those who gave a bit more of what was actually happening in the game, I was more inclined to back as a member of the jury. I'd be like, we need to vote for this person XYZ, because they were giving me their examples that I needed as we went.
It felt like you were very behind Sam. I've discussed on the podcast that the question for Sam was a bit of a layup, and then he almost fumbled it, and you gave him a second layup to help him actually slam the ball down through the hoop. Had you identified that Sam's game was the best of the three, and you wanted to see him win, or was it just you just wanted to help him out because he was,
No, I didn't want to help Sam out. I wanted him out. I don't know why I didn't sacrifice him instead of going for Shane. Like when we're all, my masterful forward chess move where Danny's, she's good. Sam's name should have been up on that platter. Let's get rid of Sam, because I was well and happy to do that. It would have put me in a great position. Don't know. I look at that and think that's a mistake from me. But as the game, so to me, I'm like, that's a mistake. Should have said Sam. But he was, I could see how well he had adapted, got the boys on side, and how he was positioning himself along. And the fact that I knew he was such a threat and felt how good he was playing, and then seeing it play out really made me put the backing behind him. If Luke was at the end, I was voting for Luke. I was team Luke. He was probably my first ally. I thought he was my ride or die at the start, which faded off because obviously it disappeared and blah, blah, blah. But I was number one for Luke. And then when Luke was going, I was fully behind Sam. I definitely thought Michelle had a really good game going for her. But there was one or two things that just didn't stand out to me as much as Sam's game did.
Yeah. And I think that's how it appears.
But I totally laid it up for him. I was out in the jury, talking him up, and then I was like, no, you haven't answered the question. Back to the you need to give the jury the information to make the decision. I was like, now's your time to go down the line. Yeah. And say how well you did.
I don't know if I voted them out. Just go down the line and tell me if you voted them out. But I
also wanted him to show that he had a ruthless side to him as well. I was like, we're seeing sweet old Sammy, humble man. I'm like, he has an edge. This guy's got an edge, and he's not showing it. Bloody well show us. Now's not the time to sit there and be little humble pie. Love you, Sammy.
Well, you were helping him out. It helped differentiate his game. It helped sell his game. He was doing a reasonable job at the final tribal council, but he did need to own it more, and you pushed that on him. So it felt like you were very much trying to help him identify. I think you even started it with what I did when I won Survivor was this. So this is what you need to do to win Survivors.
That makes me sick. It makes me sick because every time I watch the show or anyone open up talking about their game, I vomit. I'm like, shut the fuck up. It's not about you. It's not about you and your shit game. You're not at the end, so shut up. And there I am going, stop, put a sock in it, shut her up.
Look,
it only flew because there was a little bit of respect going on in the room.
It's your experience, that. That's part of your experience in this game that you were Kristie from Australian Survivor. So it's not so off-putting that you make that statement. I don't feel, because that's part of what the story of you in this game was. And I like the jury questions to be connected to that juror's story that we've seen play out. That makes for me, that gives me a conclusion to their story that I can enjoy as a viewer. So I don't mind that you use that, but I get what you're saying. Like I feel that if you and because I strongly feel that if you were a bit of a self-serving person as a player, then your question should be self-serving. I don't want the self-serving person to have some fucking altruistic like
that's true.
how lovely you. No, I want they were a dickhead in the show, and now I want a dickhead question. And I when I played, certainly that was my approach. I was going to ask a question that was all about me because that's who I knew I was going to be.
We couldn't have one without that. Like if
Yeah.
if I go and watch your season and you're not just talking about yourself at every tribal council, I'm tuning off. Like
You need
this
to
is
watch
not
it
what I
'cause there's a
signed
lot.
up for.
Yeah, there's a lot of me. So yeah, go and watch it. You see a lot of me talking about myself.
But it's so true. There's nothing worse than the person stands up and then they're just like, I'm gonna be all nice and fluffy. And it's like, no, if you're hard hitting, you're hard hitting. Own it. Like that's my biggest advice just in general at the end. I'm like, just own your freaking move. Like when you're on the jury, own your move and own your question and own your decision. Same when you're at the end of Final Tribal. Own your move. Own what you did. I don't care if you sat there and did nothing. Say why you sat there and did nothing. Because if you say it, then I can make sense of it. A little bit of tutoring there.
Yeah, no, you look at Kristie is available for coaching. That's why she got into this, and that she's still there. If I don't know if she's got a black band like Adam from American Survivor, or if your activities permitted or not, I'm not sure.
No, Australian Survivor has no idea who and how far any of my people have gotten.
Yeah, so it's on that situation.
No.
So but she's happy to provide that guidance, and obviously she might meet you and say, "Look, you're never going to get on the real thing, but there's a bunch of these LRGs that you might be interested in, and I got the hookup. I've got the hookup, so
Now I know who the people are. I've been to a couple. I've seen what the go is. Like I'm slowly figuring out, where to point them.
Well, so either way, she's available. Presumably in some way. But I guess what was the I think we're pretty much have exhausted. And I know that it's getting late for you. Hey, Sam's here. I just saw that he was here. Oh, here's Sam.
It's okay. Take advantage. Ask the questions. I'm not too tired just yet. So
Shane was here as well.
Lucky.
Look, he saw you as a threat. Shane was here.
You only saw me as a threat because everyone was telling you that.
Shane was such an enigma in this game. It was hilarious to watch.
Watching him, I'm actually really impressed with Shane. After, how I was saying the Tide Destinies, I didn't really know what the formula was. I have so much more respect for, and I always had huge respect for players who went out there and had no idea what was going on. But what he managed to pull out and make work and go with was well impressive for somebody who had never played.
Absolutely, with no real knowledge of the game or the twists, or he just went out and did his own thing, and it was incredibly effective for a long time. And he scared so many people because they just didn't know what to make of him because he was just playing his own game.
Totally, and that was the thing. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like, what do I do? This person's playing their completely own game, and it was not making any survival logical games and moves, so you just couldn't preempt anything that he was doing, and he wouldn't talk to anyone. So everyone was like, it just forgot and didn't care. Good on him. If he made it to the end, he would have. If he could say what he did, I would have been open to voting for him.
I think he would have struggled though, because I think similarly perhaps to what you experienced with Lee, if you've never watched the Final Tribal Council and you get to one and you don't know what to expect, it can probably take you a while to you could lose your footing quite quickly and go, hang on, what's going on here? People are saying that not nasty but slightly nasty things about me, or TK got up and you lost my vote, and that sort of stuff could put you on the back foot if you're not expecting some people to be bitter, some people to want to showboat, because that's part of it really. If you're not expecting that, it can be probably pretty off-putting. But then again, Shane might have just managed it in his just standard Shane way and taking his own approach, and you'd be like, wow, this guy's revolutionizing the game. He's
didn't
like,
even,
he
you know,
didn't
have to
even
do
know
a
you had to
speech.
do a speech.
Yeah,
Do you like?
yeah. Post cotton socks.
Do you what has it been like for you? You know, you played this a year ago, or you played it a few years ago. It came out last year. Obviously, they used your presence as a bit of a hype point, and it did get a lot of people in the LRG community. I don't know if it exposed more people. I imagine it did expose some people that weren't aware of LRGs by your presence
Yeah,
to the
probably.
community. Just generally, like we obviously, and you're part of it, of course, because you're a player, you're here. You know, we're a huge fan. We love it. Hey, we were talking about you earlier, Mel, if you just arrived. Hey, Mel.
Yay, we were talking about you.
The community is such a fantastic community. And I think it's a really supportive one. What's been, you know, your experience, and how has it been to join this community of super fans, being someone that a lot of these super fans, of course, really respect?
It has been so wild. I went out there, and when I agreed to play, I was like, I'm going to go out there, play, and I'm never going to talk to any of these people ever again, which is so not my personality. I go out, I'm a friend-making person. I was like, no one's going to be my friend. Everyone's going to bugger off, and I'm literally just doing this for myself. And I was like, damn it, I'm stuck with all these best friends now. I actually really like these people. Oh, how annoying.
Without wanting to cast shade on anyone that you played the Real Survivor for, would you say that you may have more friends from this than you had from the Real Survivor?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely have more friends out of playing in this Sydney Survivor and becoming a part of the Survivor community. And genuine friends, like real good friends, not just because we played. I had a lot of friends of just because we played Australian Survivor, which wore off after a bit. And then, you know, I still have lifelong friends from that. But I have so many best friends out of this. And it astonishes me, and it astonishes my friends. Like a lot of like a handful of the Sydney Survivor people came to my birthday, which was very small, like uh, not even 10 people were there, and half of them were Sydney Survivor people and the other half were like my high school friends, and they were like, you've only known this person for like a year, and they love them and they're fully integrated. It's not like we're talking about Survivor all the
Mm.
time, but it's nice to be able to. It has, and I had just moved back from New Zealand at the time, which has also contributed to why I wanted to play, to just get out there and meet more people. And it gave me a whole new set of friends to hang out with and do activities that I liked doing, because none of my friends are into this. They're not into escape rooms. They're not into board game nights. They're not into strategy. And that's fine, but it's not very fun to not do any of that when you're really into it. And now I have, you know, 10, 20, 30 people that you can call up on a whim and be like, hey, do you want to go to laser tag or time
Yeah.
zone or bowling or an escape room? And they're all keen, ready to go. And it's the best. It's changed my life being a part of the community, really.
Well, that's a lovely endorsement. And look, I agree wholeheartedly. I think everyone who's part of the community feels that way. I didn't have anyone to talk to Survivor about for 20 years. I watched Survivor for 20 years, since a bit way through Australian Outback, and I never had anyone that was into it like I was. So it's why my poor wife has had to put up with it, because when I want to talk about it sometimes, I'm like, hey, can I talk about it? She's like, okay, but I don't really like it, but sure, we'll talk about it for a bit. I'd be like, oh my God, these people are going to be on like Winners at War. It's so amazing. She's like, yeah, cool. Like, you know, and then
get into it.
and then I went on this. I met obviously some people that like Survivor, which was great. But Max and Annabelle, who were my alliance on Playing with Fire, like I still have this. They're like two of my best friends, and they're people that like I wouldn't have met and I wouldn't have that relationship with if it wasn't for having played that game. So unless you go on, I don't think you can understand the connections you can make with people.
Totally. And it seems absurd. And we talk about it a lot. I used to talk about it with Australian Survivor. I was like, it's weird how like close you get and why it hurts so much when you vote somebody out. With Sydney Survivor, I was like, you don't ever, or any of these short LRG games, you don't have to make these big decisions that have huge trust and thought in it with some of your best friends of like your whole life. You're never put to the test of, are they going to follow through? Are they trustworthy? Do they have your back? Are they going to be there for you when you feel like this, that, and the other? So you very quickly determine what this person's like, what they stand for. Do you like the way that they make decisions? And so you accelerate that friendship because you don't get that in everyday life, like under the palm.
And when you trust, I found when you trust your gut and you think, yeah, this person's being genuine with me and I'm being genuine with them, and I think that we've got a real relationship, and then that is put to the test, and there's a video record after the fact about, you know, them saying, yeah, no, I'm really tight with CK, let's go. Like, it just makes you feel really positive about it because you put your faith out there. You're not just your faith in them, but your faith in your own intuition and your own sort of gut about what you think about people think about you. And to know that that was correct is very fulfilling, I think.
Oh, that is the most, you've really hit the nail on the head there. It is, because you kind of come out and you're a bit panicky and you're a bit like, are we actually friends? Like, I really did feel good about, like, Matt, like, the second I landed on the mat and I was standing next to Matt, I was like, I want to work with him. He's a good egg. I decided, like, straight away. And then I was damned that when we weren't on the same tribe, and then I went up to him and I literally said that to him straight away. And the whole time I'm going, I feel real good about this guy. But then I was like, oh no, what happens if he wasn't like that towards me? And then seeing it back on the show, just genuinely being there. Yes, there are funny moments where he says things about me and I say things about him and stuff. But at the end of the day, I was like, no, like, you can trust your gut. And it's so important to have that reassurance all the time. Not reassurance, but I don't think enough people trust their gut, and they listen too much to what the external is getting pitched to them, and they don't realize that so much of the information that you're receiving is non-verbal and non-visual kind of thing, which makes me sound so like woo woo la la, but it's fucking true. And if we all relied on that a little bit more in our lives, we'd be all making such better decisions.
I think you're absolutely right. And when you're in the survivor environment, fundamentally you have to distrust most of what everyone is saying to you. You've already got to put their words may be empty. They could be lying to me. That's part of the game. I've got to appreciate that. I'm not offended by that. So putting their words to one side, or what they're saying someone is saying, like blah, blah said this about you, whatever they're saying, put that to one side and just go, what do I feel is actually happening? That you really have to do it more than you do in real life, because in real life, you sort of assume that most people aren't lying to you all the time, that most people are being genuinely honest for the most part. Whether that's true or not, that's how a lot of people, I would say, you know, walk around everyday life. But when you know, ignore everything that they say, and now let's look at the non-verbal cues. Let's look at what's the body language. Let's look at just how I feel, because that's what your gut is, right? It's you subconsciously making these deductions that you don't realize you're making.
And it's funny because after watching the LIG and playing it, I think a lot of people think that people are lying a lot more than they really are, and I'm the number one person to be like, they're lying, like, don't trust anything anyone says. And I'm like, half the time you're too busy to lie. There's not enough time to come up with a lie, and most of the time what the person tells you at that time is usually the truth, unless your gut is like, they're way off. But they're telling you what's right at the time, and then the plans change by the time it gets around to being back on you. So it's your responsibility to keep up to date with the most relevant information, instead of all of a sudden being like, my gut told me that I was fine, but I was so wrong. I'm like, no, it's because you didn't go give your gut more intel.
Yeah. Ethan's also arrived. He's excited to see you.
Cromie!
They've also like slowly arrived. It's wonderful. Have them come
They're
in.
all slowly tuning in.
Do you have anything
They're
else
like,
that
I
you
can't
want
believe
to
she's
talk?
awake.
Yeah, it's okay.
I
It's good
always
that I
get
don't stop
messages
talking.
from them.
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about, or you feel you've expressed your experience?
Oh, I feel like I haven't spoken about the LRG community and stuff enough. Like, I know we
Okay.
spoke a lot about my game and things, but I guess if we talk about there's like so many things that I've learned through the LRG community and opened things up and met so many people. Like, it's so unreal to see Matt and Ethan and Luke playing in all these overseas games
And Joseph.
and Joseph. Like, I'm watching Joseph's now and getting to meet like I went to Matty P's birthday and I got to meet a bunch of Melbourne players and I was involved with Brisbane Survivor production stuff, which is unreal. Super excited for season 2 of Brisbane Survivor. It is outstanding.
Everyone keeps saying this, and we're very much looking forward to covering
Outstanding.
it on the ORCA pod, I must say. Everyone keeps saying this. I'm very excited.
But it was also just like a pleasure to work on as crew. Like, sometimes when you're in crew, you're just exhausted, you're irritated with people because you feel like you're doing all this work or whatever it might be. There was honestly, from my perspective, none of that. Like, I could not feel my feet and I had my feet were bleeding because they were so wet and blistered. And I was happy to continue. I wasn't like, oh, fuck, I'm going to go sit down. And it was because everyone had such a good attitude. Sam's such a great host and like leader of it all. And all the people he knows are just great. And the attitude there was amazing. So, yeah, raving about that. Also, the other things. Now I'm just talking about random stuff.
Have you watched other LRGs?
Yeah, bits and pieces.
What have you watched?
I've watched a bit of Backyard. I watched all of Real Fort. I've seen bits and pieces of Canberra. It's more bits and pieces rather than like a whole season kind of thing.
Have you watched the season that I was on? No, you haven't. Well,
no, but
I've
know a lot about it. See, I'm a big spoiler person. I'm like, tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. Because I'm happy to watch it and then be like, oh, that's how they got there.
I've located the Chappies video. I can play it to you, and you can tell me if now you're convinced to watch the season. How about that? Do you want to see the Chappies video?
For your season? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
The promo that Chappies made me. I'll pull it up, all right? So only gets 50 seconds, and then we'll be back.
Boy, it's your boy Chappies here from Survivor South Africa, Season 8, Immunity Island. And I just want to take a few minutes. Sorry, I've got some Australian dust stuck in my throat. Just want to take a few seconds to shout out to Chris that partook in Survivor Melbourne, Season 3, playing with fire. And man, that's going to be so epic. I'm rooting for you, Chris. I'm going to check you out. Thank you for rooting for me from the start. You didn't even know me, but you rooted for me as if I'm your brother. So I'm going to be checking you out. You go cause chaos. And if you're going to watch, whoever's going to watch Survivor Melbourne Season 3, you better be rooting for Chris. This guy's been playing with fire since the age of 3. And he's going to cause some havoc. I'm looking forward to see the magic that you bring to the table, Chris. Go make it happen, boy.
Oh, that's so good. That's so cool. I love that. That's so custom too.
It was custom. There's no cameo logo. It was legit, just chatting with this guy.
A legit endorsement.
A legit endorsement. So I was very excited to achieve that. I don't think many people probably saw it when I posted it when I was cast because no one knew who I was back then. So I like the opportunity here to throw it up again. And maybe that will convince you to go and watch Playing with Fire.
Yeah, no, I after watching I was heavily invested in Real for obviously because of Matt and Ethan and because it was live, I could wake up every morning and be like, oh, this is how it's going. So after watching that and now watching Joseph's one, I'm much more open and keen to watching more of the other ones as well, because now I kind of understand like what the format is and kind of thing. Like I kind of just like them short and snappy a little bit. But it's kind of like I've warmed up to that now, and because I know so many more people in the community now. Like for me, I kind of like to know one person. I pay attention to everyone and everything, but knowing where I kind of have some investment is good for me.
Oh, but absolutely, everyone. If
But
you
I think
know someone,
everyone's like that, right?
if you know, I hadn't watched all these seasons. I've watched them now for this recap. Some of them I hadn't watched, some of them I had, and I did a rewatch now. But watching them now, knowing the people in the community, it's more enjoyable than because you know who that person is, you know what they're like in real life, and you're interested to see how they approach the game. Like, have you watched Mel's season, Canberra too?
No, but I know all about it, and I know everything that happens.
You're too spoiled on it, but like, and to be fair,
I'm being exposed. I'm so sorry, guys. It's weird because I know all the names and faces and backgrounds in game, but I haven't visually seen it.
It's okay. It's fine. Look, that's not everyone in the community has watched every season. That's part of why we did this countdown. It wasn't about wanting to who's the best and worst, whatever. It's completely subjective. Rankings are reductive, as people say. The point of it was to firstly shine some light on some of the seasons that a lot of people have never watched. A lot of seasons people haven't watched because they've come to the community recently. So they're not aware of these seasons that were made 4 or 5 years ago, but they still had a lot of hard work to put into them. And it's great that people have taken the chance now with our podcast coverage to go back and watch those seasons. But also back in those days, there wasn't like an ORCA pod who's going to interview them when they get voted out and talk about their moves. And that's, I think, part of the whole experience. And so it was a good chance for those people who played those older seasons to get that experience of having a couple of people who are fans talk about their games, good or bad, or what in between, to highlight their experience and highlight those prior seasons. We're going to have a big break now, probably, because I think we're going to have Canberra come out, and then probably Backyard, and then some of these other seasons that are in the can might drop as well. So at some point, we'll come back to the countdown, and the top three are not like I haven't told anyone outside the podcast who 1, 2, and 3 are, but the 3 seasons are Backyard 4, which was an incredible piece of production, Canberra 2, which Mel was on, and the season that I was on. So, they're pretty recent. It's good. No big deal if we don't cover them for a long time, but I've really enjoyed just having this opportunity to highlight to the whole community. There's actually a lot of seasons here that a lot of people put a lot of work into, and they're in all of their own ways particularly wonderful.
Oh, totally. And I just can't understand how much time people put into making this stuff. Like, I think players often forget, and crew who don't help with filming, including myself, like post-production stuff, just really can't fathom how much of a full-time second job it is to pull this together. And there needs to be more appreciation and acceptance of, like, yes, obviously it is not in 4K and perfect angles, like not everyone, like people in production and the pictures, like I don't really care as long as you're capturing the moment and I can hear it, like, and telling the story. That's the best part for me. And it's the fact that you guys do this podcast thing and give everyone their dreams. Like, you have no idea how many players I talk to, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited! I've got my interview on the ORCA pods this week. What am I going to say? These are my points." Kristie, should I bring this up? And it brings me so much joy that they get to have that experience, and then all of a sudden they can relate more to players from the show as well, which is something that's really important for me, because there's a big disconnect there sometimes. But thank you so much for the amount of effort that you go in. Like, it's not easy rewatching all of the seasons, making notes and finding time to talk to everyone. And like I've only given an hour and a half of my time, but over the past week, you've probably done, 20 hours minimum to get all your notes together, chat to everyone, watch it all.
Yes, I don't know. This is like we've been doing this particular podcast for a year, and I think we'll be at like 100 hours or something. I don't know, something crazy. But I have to calculate it. That of just talking. But I love doing this. I love recapturing the magic of these seasons. You know, it's actually as silly as this sounds. I had this idea before I was even played in Melbourne. I'm like, I would love to do a podcast about Survivor, but there's a bazillion podcasts about Survivor. So who's going to listen to my podcast? Who am I? Like, what's the point? It'd be a waste of time. I'm like, maybe I could podcast about these amateur ones. Like once I've played, I had that thought in the back of my head, and I could be talking about Survivor, but there'd be a small audience, but an audience of people that are interested in it because it's part of that community. And I'm so glad I've been able to get it going.
Well, you're definitely famous in the community. It's everyone was like, you know, CK, and I was like, bloody hell, everyone's talking about CK. Obviously, I've known you for a longer time now.
Yeah.
But at first, it was like, who is this bloke that everyone knows who has his own podcast? And you're like the JLP of the amateur side. Yeah, I don't know if that really makes sense, but you know what I'm saying.
Rob Sestorino of the amateur side is my goal.
Oh, okay, but you're much nicer than him.
Oh, you know,
I like you.
Ooh, guys, no,
go ahead and listen to the shit that he has to say about me.
I haven't heard him talk about you, but how could he say anything else except how fantastic you are? Because that's my view. You know, you've taken the time. Not only are you a fantastic player, but you took the time to come on to this. You took the time to be on Sydney, and you took the time to be on here. Give me an hour and a half of your time, past your bedtime a bit. I really appreciate it. I was really, really hopeful that you'd come on and do this special guest interview because you playing in this season was something pretty special. Like before this, you know, people were pretty excited that Canberra got Connor to come out for some reward challenge. You know, like, you know, this comparative, and people were excited about that. Like, wow, Connor was on like the real Survivor on then as a like a reward, and like the fact that you came on and played was like mind blowing.
I'm pretty sure I messaged him before I did all of this too, because I was like, I hear that you like did something. Like, what happened? What's the go?
Yeah. Are you friends with Connor? He seems like a nice guy.
He's a lovely guy. He's kind of just off doing his life, which is great. But you know, if I ever sent him a message, he would always reply, and likewise. Like,
yeah, seemed like a lovely guy.
He's a lovely guy.
But we were very excited. So thank you again. Really appreciate your time and your just support of the show and the community, and obviously just part of the community now. So it's easy to support it from within. I'm so pleased you came on, and I would like to thank everyone who was in the comments live, chatting away and commenting away. We always love to have you live. And I know many people watch or listen to the podcast after it's been recorded. I know obviously pretty people can't watch it live. So I just throw it up for Mel. Mel loves you. Here she is. She loves you.
I love you, Mel.
We know you watch it another time. We really appreciate your support for our show and the community. Next week, we will be chatting with production, Eli, and possibly, I always forget his name.
Byron.
Yes, thank you. Everyone was for me. Sorry, Byron. I've never met Byron. I'm looking forward to meet him potentially. Apparently, he was a big part of the season 1 production. We'll be giving out the awards, of course. And then same double podcast next week. Monday, we'll be covering that. And Wednesday, Jules, Danny, and I will be starting our coverage of Canberra versus the World with a draft of the cast. We'll see who gets the best picks for the Canberra versus the World season, which will be launching next Friday week. So tune in for the end of September for the beginning of Canberra versus the World. I'm very excited. Thank you again, Kristie, for coming on and sharing your experience with us. And thank you to everyone. Again, we will see you soon.